everyone, it's Bells. Welcome back to my channel. If you didn't know this about me, I'm an Aquarius. If you couldn't tell by my blue hair. We are doing an Aquarius themed readathon. So I just finished my 24-hour readathon where I read books that were recommended to me as an Aquarius. This was a really fun experiment. Every book that I read wound up being 4 or 5 stars, so it went really well. I'm going to give you a rundown of the books that I actually picked to read on this readathon. I'll also give you a whole list of every book that was recommended to me more than once. Just if you want to read them, you can. I took recommendations from YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, the internet to give you like the most thorough Aquarius focused list that I could. So it's gonna be a fun time. It turned out really well. I'm really excited about it. Also, credit where credit's due. I got this idea from Books and Lala, so I'll also put her video where she reads like Aries related books in the description. Can't help but that I was directly influenced and basically just stealing her idea. Let's bring on the books. Alrighty everyone, if you are enjoying this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, of course, and let's talk about Aquariuses. So Aquariuses, all this came up over and over again. Intelligent, value intelligence and knowledge, particularly. Humanitarian, self-reliant, can be very pretentious, which is true. And like generally the weirdos of the group. Bookish Spencer described us as the Doc Martens girl, which I thought was fucking hilarious. Mostly because I have Docs and they are like my favorite pair of shoes. So I feel a little attacked, but like in the best way. Aquariuses are so unique. They're like the weirdos. That's the vibe. I'm gonna give you a rundown of every book that came up more than once. Where is my little list? Circe by Madeline Miller came in first at 5 recommendations. Then The Hate You Give at 4 recommendations. 1984 had 3. Exit West had 3. Little Fires Everywhere had 3. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy had 3. Legend was also recommended 3 times. I've already read that one. And then the rest of these were all recommended twice. That is Bored and Brilliant, When Dimple Met Rishi, The Nowhere Girls, Dumplin', The Deep, The Diviners, Earthlings, Stay Sweet, Honey Girl, Normal People, If We Were Villains, and Daisy Jones and the Six. As was The Handmaid's Tale was recommended twice. Same with Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and House of Leaves was recommended twice. The books that I wound up picking to read on this little readathon. Of course, first I read Circe. I had 5 recommendations. It was already on my TBR. I didn't know a single thing about Circe. It's about this water nymph who discovers that she's a witch and like is exiled to an island and like spends the whole book learning witchcraft, and she is just like the most Aquarius person I've ever read about. But I'm going to let Virginia from Virginia Woolf explain this to us because she did it like way better than I ever could.
This one reminds me a lot of the star card in tarot, which is the card that aligns with Aquarius.
Oh yeah, so I did not know that the star card aligns with Aquarius in tarot. I feel like I should know that, but I didn't.
Circe is very much positioned as an outsider, okay? She's very much ostracized, you know what I'm saying? She's not like other girls. Not actually, but like a little bit. She's very rebellious in terms of refusing to embody and go along with the norms of where she's coming from, okay? Because of this, she's able to kind of rise above it all as an observer and is able to really see like the god and goddess bullshit for what it really is, okay, as well as the world of mortal humans. But another aspect of the star card in particular that this book reminds me of is the aspect of like optimism, healing, and hope, which really reminds me of the part of the book where she is like sent off to her little island and where she really starts like developing a relationship and digging into her craft as a witch.
I have heard a lot of recommendations for Circe, and this was the first one that actually made me want to read it. So thank you, Virginia. The next book that was recommended to me was not recommended to me by a YouTuber. This one came up 3 times from a website, Instagram post, and a TikTok, which I'll put somewhere over here. This is Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. It's basically set at the like very beginning of a civil war that is developing in this country, an unnamed country, and at the same time a bunch of like portals are opening up to other places in the world that refugees are able to escape through. We're seeing all of this through the eyes eyes of this very new couple and how they are like navigating this new world and the change that comes with it. So the next book that I picked to read was Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. We'll talk about this book a lot later, but this is a wild read. I just like want you to be prepared. It is not a cute read at all. Okay, we're gonna let Katie over at Katie Flowers explain why we should read Earthlings as Aquariuses.
Now, Aquarius, this one might seem a bit obvious given what Sammy said, but I have selected for you Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. And I'm going to start by saying this is just a weird-ass book. At the beginning, we meet Natsuki, who is a strange young girl who has a magic wand and a magic mirror, and she believes she's an alien. As she grows up, she tries to fit herself into the box that society wants her to be in and to play out the roles that society wants her to play. But at some point in the book, she sort of finds that she just can't contain herself any longer. She, along with two men, her cousin and her husband, return to their childhood conviction that they are aliens, and they sort of retreat and remove themselves from society. This story just gets weirder and stranger as these characters disconnect more and more from both society and eventually also their humanity. It's a complex, strange exploration of trauma, the pressures of society, as well as our individual drive to be true to ourselves. It's hard to talk about this book because it is just really, it's really fucking bonkers. And I think that is something you will really like about it, Aquarius. The only thing I will say is that there are quite a lot of trigger warnings for this book. So if it's something you're interested in, be sure to look those up.
And the last book that I picked to read for this readathon was The Deep by River Solomon, which is based off of a song that was written by Daveed Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes, which was actually based off of a different song. I don't have a YouTuber to show you. I found this on a TikTok. Something that was happening when a lot of ships were bringing African slaves from Africa to North America was a lot of pregnant women were thrown overboard because they required too many resources. What the first song does that this book then builds off of is created a mythology where what if, because they were thrown into the ocean, these babies were born as mer people and like able to live in the water. We're 600 years later, and in this world, Yetu is the historian. So she is tasked with remembering all of the traumas, all of the experiences of her entire people so that everyone else in the community does not have to remember them, does not have to go through that pain with her. She escapes to the surface and kind of learns a little bit more about the world without the attachments of those memories. Those are the 6 books that I picked to read. I hope you enjoy the process. Feel free to skip around to all of the different books. I'll make sure to separate them into chapters. Let's start the vlog. I hope you all enjoy it. Everyone, it's our first check-in of the day. So I am about 40% through Circe, which I looked up how to pronounce, and I guess in ancient Greek we would have pronounced it Kirky, but no one could decide whether it's Circe or Circe, and I like Circe, so we're gonna stick with that. I like it a lot so far. I mean, I've read a couple of Greek retellings over the last year. I usually enjoy them, even though they are a little bit linear for my taste, just structurally, and this is no different. I like it a lot. It's in Madeline Miller's style, which she wrote Song of Achilles really well. She wrote this really well. I kind of am enjoying this more because I don't already know the story of Circe. So Circe, if you don't know, is the daughter of the sun god Helios and a nymph, Perse. Basically all the kids that these two had together all turned out to be like really powerful witches with powers beyond what the gods can comprehend. Circe is the only one who tells everyone what she does. She's the only one who actively doesn't try to hide her powers. Her other siblings hide their powers, pretend they fell on them in secret. She does not. And she is exiled for it to an island where she basically learns the art of witchcraft. And I just finished a section where she goes and meets Daedalus, helps out her sister Pasiphae, and we have like a little brief interlude with the story of the Minotaur and Ariadne and Theseus. And that was fun because I read Ariadne last year and I really liked that as well, so it's cool to like see how all of these myths intertwine. From an Aquarius perspective, God, is she just not the most Aquarius person on the planet. I can totally see why this was recommended the most out of all of these books for Aquariuses. everything she does, I swear to God, is her just trying to be as different from everyone else as possible, which is like very Aquarius, very like, I must go my own way. How unique can I possibly be? What would every other god do? Okay, great, I'm gonna do the opposite of that. I like it so far. I'm invested in it so far. I like it better than Song of Achilles. I'm here for that that retelling and telling a female story that's been lost to time and misogyny. We're gonna go head over to the library so I can pick up all of the other books that I have to read today as options. I'm feeling really good. I just needed an excuse to sit down and relax and read some books all day. And what better excuse than for content? So I think it's gonna be a good day. Well, we got back from our walk. I've got all of the books that I need for today. I am getting my booster shot today in like 2 hours. So we'll see if I can finish Circe by the booster shot. It's possible. It's 2 o'clock right now. So I probably don't have enough time to read like all 6 books that I grabbed for this, but I think I can probably get a good chunk done. Yeah, we'll go from there. We did it, guys. We got the booster. I'm hoping this doesn't like fuck up this day by making me tired. We're almost done, Circe. It's good. It's sad. It is a Greek tragedy, so like, duh. I'll come back when I finish it. My cat is digging through my yarn. Essie.
I wanted the needles. Where'd you put them?
All right, so that is book number 1 done, which took like way longer than I expected. It is after 7 o'clock. And I started this like fairly early this morning. I know we've been doing stuff, but like it was a longer book than I expected. I liked it. I like it better than Song of Achilles. I prefer the Wild Women stories. And I mean, that was why I had to read this book like for sure today. It is about a woman coming into her own, being comfortable with her unique qualities, with her differences, being comfortable with herself and her actions, and like owning up to her past and helping others and standing up for herself. Like all things for me. The one thing that stops me from like really loving this book is honestly just Madeline Miller's writing. She writes very plainly, which is fine. I just would have preferred more lyrical writing. I just don't feel like I got enough of a taste of the world. I didn't feel like the world was particularly magical or different than where we live now. I didn't feel like I could feel the island that she's exiled on. I didn't feel the sense of the world building. Honestly, there wasn't a lot of world building. It's more about the characters for her than it is about the fantasy world. I understand that, and that's fine for the style of this book, but I just don't love it. So I think it's gonna get like 4 stars probably. Very good first book. Let's look at my stack. See what we've got next. We've got a novella about mermaids. That might be the next one. We've got The Hate You Give, which I really do want to read, but is also longer than I expected. So maybe not that one next. This one, The Nowhere Girls, also sounds really good. Also a little longer than I expected. And this is one I'm okay to leave for later if I have to, because I think I might want to savor this story a little bit more. So I'll put that here. Sci-fi romance, not super long. So that could be fun. I do really want to read Earthlings. Hello, pretty kitty. So I'm gonna read The Deep next, I think, and have something short like in between, and then probably Earthlings, and then we'll decide what next one I want to read. Let's talk about The Deep before all of the light from outside is gone. Okay, so The Deep is a novella by Rivers Solomon that is based off of a song Clipping. The song is cool, I'll link it below. I don't remember exactly why this one was picked for Aquariuses, but I know all of these books are like, you like learning about things, activism focused books, you're humanitarians, all the lovely ego building stuff for all the Aquariuses. I'm also gonna make some tea so I can wake up a little bit and be engaged with all of these books for the rest of the evening. Okie dokie, that is 2 books down. I also have the perfect snack for it. Because they're mermaids who live in the ocean. This is a really cool book. So it's based off of a song called Clipping, which was written by Daveed Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes, which is based off of a different song that created this whole world, this mythology that's created in these 3 different worlds that each new piece of media is building off of, is reframing that situation with the question of, well, what if, because these babies were still in the womb, because the womb is an aquatic environment, what if they were able to adapt to the ocean and breathe, and rather than being thrown to their deaths, what if these women were able to escape their oppression? The actual book is about Yetu, who is the historian, and so she's tasked with taking all of the past traumas and pain and memories and love and happiness of the entire generation of this underwater society, so about 600 years, and she is tasked with keeping all of those memories so that everybody else in their world doesn't have to relive the trauma. Every year they have a remembrance where she shares the memories with them so they can connect to their history without being overloaded by the pain like she is. Obviously, she is overwhelmed completely. She can't handle the pain. She feels like it's killing her, that she's going to die if she has to handle all of it by herself. She holds the remembrance, and so she leaves her entire community living through that trauma that they've never had to deal with, and she just leaves them because she knows that if she takes the memories back, she's not gonna make it. And she goes and flees up to the surface world where she meets a small group of people and just kind of learns about the world. And it's really talking about like why history is important, why that is just as important as the future for cultures, why history is something that creates ties between people. But it's also talking about how history needs to be a communal act. We need to be able to discuss the past in relation to the present and hear other people's thoughts and feelings, because everyone has a different perspective on the same things. We can all learn from each other. That's what this book is about. I thought it was like truly fantastic. I'm a sucker for anything with mermaids, but like this was so beyond any kind of like mermaid story. Again, this is a very Aquarius book. Talking about why history is important and how we have to share that with other people, talking about culture and other places and that aspect of communication between cultures and between different kinds of people. I love it. I love it. This book is right up my alley. I don't know, this is probably a 5-star book. This was so good. It was super short. It took me like not even 2 hours to read. I highly recommend this. Oh, hello. You wanna come up here? Maybe? You should read this book. Okay, cool. I am going to totally switch gears and go and read Earthlings. And since it's now a little after 10 and I am getting a little sleepy, I feel like something like that will definitely like hold my attention. I am 100 pages into this guy, chapter 3. Yeah. This is probably one of the most triggering books I've ever read. It's definitely a horror. It was horrifying. We're finally past the part where she's a child and now she's a grown-up. And I don't know if that will get worse or better, but at least she's not a child anymore. That's all I have to say about this so far. It's written well, it's clearly social commentary, but I might hate it. It is 1:30 in the morning. What the fuck did I just fucking read? What just happened? this is not horror in the scary, traditional horror sense, but it was certainly disturbing. I understand why it was put on an Aquarius list, you know, with the main characters thinking they're aliens, they're so different from the rest of the world. I do think that the actual issues and like social issues that were brought up in this book were really important and handled really well, and I think that's something that horror does cater itself to. And I want you all to know, I checked the content warnings on this before I read this. I knew what I was getting myself into. I did not know what I was getting myself into. I don't know how to rate this. I didn't enjoy this, but I kind of did. I'm very squeaky right now. I don't know what to do with this. Based off of my reaction, it clearly did what it set out to do. And it's certainly a unique book that I will not soon forget. I swear to God, 50% of this book was really difficult to read because it dealt with some really graphic, important but graphic pedophilia issues. I really felt like it blindsided me. This was like brutal. I was planning on going to bed because it is 1:30 and I am tired and my eyes hurt. How am I supposed to sleep or do anything except try not to think about this fucking book? I don't know. I'm gonna go to bed and we're gonna wake up in the morning. We're gonna go from there. Good night. Hi everyone, so it is 2 p.m. now. I spent the morning reading my final book for this vlog, which was Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I finished this morning before my like noon deadline, so it does count. I just was tired and wanted to like shower and like feel like a real person before I came back on camera, so now we're here. So this book is like a really, really light sci-fi or fantasy that really circles and centers around a civil war that is brewing and then comes to a head in some country that is not super clear but is likely in the Middle East. And we are seeing this civil war through the eyes of this young new couple, Nadia and Saeed. As the story goes on, there's doors that start popping up that are basically portals to other countries. And so refugees start using that to get away from the war to get to other places where they are safe. And so where this story goes is it becomes a conversation about borders, about migrants, about what a community actually looks like, about maybe where the future of our world should be going. It's a very quiet, subtle book that sees all of these plot points happening through a character's perspective, similar to how like Assassin's Apprentice is very quiet, experiencing a lot of plot through the eyes of like one person. And I really liked this. It reminded me a lot of Leave the World Behind, which was a book I did not like, that I think has a similar level of intimacy and has a similar idea of like something huge, like monumentally transformative is happening in the world, and we are watching regular people trying to handle that. I think both those books are addressing similar things, if not the same exact topics. I like this one a lot better. I feel like this was saying a lot more about the world that we live in, about the refugee crisis. I can see why, again, it was picked for an Aquarius. It's very like communal based. I don't want to spoil it, but I don't think it's spoiling it because this book is really about the journey that you go on. Where this kind of goes is like taking down traditional borders between countries and cities and like just creating communities where people can just live and work and eat and have lives, which is a concept I really enjoyed playing with. It was a really cool thought experiment, and I could definitely see why that would be recommended to an Aquarius, because the whole idea is like humanitarian, like making the world a better place, yada yada yada. So we are both learning about culture on the other side of the world, and we are learning about a crisis that is happening right now with refugees. And I think that this gives a really nuanced approach to it and was just like really subtle and interesting, and I loved the idea of putting these like little portals in place, because once borders do not become an issue, once we don't have like need passports to travel between places, what really is the point of them anyways? Why do we need giant nations when we could just have communities that are all helping each other out? It posed a lot of questions to me and I really liked it. This is a definite recommendation from me. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was great. But I'm gonna be totally honest, I have not stopped thinking about Earthlings, and I want to talk a little bit more about it because I think my reaction yesterday was very visceral. I had just finished reading the wild plot of this book, and I think that I may have lost what the story was about in that review, so I want to talk about this a little bit more. If you take out the gore, if you take out the grotesque nature of the book, if you take out the triggering situations and language, this is a book about adults reclaiming their bodies and reclaiming control over their lives. I've been enjoying horror a lot recently, but I think this has just like pushed that beyond what I could have imagined loving about horror, because this was so specific and no other genre would be able to go this far without like committing the author. I think that's a really lovely thing about the horror genre, is writers just don't shy away from the ugly side of human nature. Sayaka Murata is dealing with some really real things that happen every day all over the place, and I think the brutal nature and the simplistic nature of the writing here made the experience of reading this more violent than it may have otherwise been. And I mean that in a good way. Like, I think it's good that I was blindsided by some of the content from Natsuki's childhood. I think it was good that I felt disgusted and had to put this down to like take a minute before I could continue reading it. These are things that happen all the time everywhere and blindside kids just like this all the time everywhere. And that's a really important thing to talk about. And beyond that, the actual social commentary behind this idea of society as a baby factory and our expectations for romance and for working as like a worker in the world. And I think this addresses that dilemma really well. I want to recommend this to anyone who has the stomach for it. Please read the content warnings. Please read some reviews. I'm just gonna put that out there. But I think it is a worthwhile read. I think I'm excited that I read this. I think I will recommend this to people who are open to reading something like this. And I think that this really like struck a very interesting, exciting chord for me in the concept of like what I want to read moving forward. I think that this is really special. The ending, yeah, is weird and like horrible, and I went, what the fuck, like the entire time I was reading the last like 15 pages of this. It's gory and gross and like really horrible. But I think if you can handle it, or you've read like other like weird things and are like willing to give this a try, it's worth it. I don't know if I'd ever read it again, but I don't know if I wouldn't read it again. I am glad I read it in one sitting. I don't know if I would have picked this up had I like put it down and walked away from it for a couple of days. I don't know if I would have wanted to go back to this. It was a horrible experience, but like one that I'm glad I went on. I know I said like 2 seconds ago, I don't know if I'd read this again. I think I would read this again. I think I'd buy this and put this on my shelf and like read it every couple years. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you for going on this little journey with me. This experiment went really freaking well. I have added so many of these books that I didn't get a chance to read onto my TBR because they all 4 of these books were 4 stars or higher. I encourage you to like go and try out new things. I don't know if I would have picked a book like this up had it not been suggested to me in this way. You know what I mean? Thank you for watching and hanging out and hopefully having a good time. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Go check out this video if you're looking for another video of mine to watch, and I'll see you all next week. I'm gonna go take a nap, I think. It's 3 o'clock. Oh my god, it's 3 o'clock? Okay, so I have therapy in like 2 hours, so we're gonna hang out with my cat and then go back to bed. Okay, bye!